This is the story of a young boy named Walter. One day, his mother leaves him at the house of his uncles, Hub and Garth. Even though they are distant relatives, Walter's mother, May, believes her son will be safe living with them. In front of Walter, she explains that she needs to return to university and that bringing him along would only make things harder for her. May also tells Walter that Uncle Hub and Uncle Garth have no children or heirs, and that everyone knows they keep millions of dollars hidden somewhere in their house. The problem is, no one knows where the money is. After hearing this, Walter begins to suspect that his mother sent him there for a reason. And he is right. May wants him to stay with his uncle so he can find out where the money is hidden. Rumors say that Uncle Hub and Uncle Garth were once hired killers, which is why they had to hide their money. Others claim that 40 years ago they disappeared into a mental hospital, then later won a lawsuit that made them incredibly rich. May does not care about any of that. All she wants is for Walter to behave well, hoping his uncles will soften and give him the money. Even if that does not happen, at least Walter might discover where it is hidden. Not long after, Walter arrives at his uncle's house. However, Uncle Hub and Uncle Garth turn out to be far from friendly. They own many dogs that are aggressive toward strangers, almost as if they are guarding the house. After asking permission to leave Walter there, May says goodbye and leaves. Walter feels deeply sad as he watches his mother go. Still, because she insists, he has no choice but to stay. From that day on, Walter lives with his two uncles. Unfortunately, his very first day there already feels boring. The house is old and has no phone or television. All day long, Uncle Hub and Uncle Garth sit on the porch, cleaning their guns. This is where Walter's time with them begins. Welcome to Second-Hand Lions. At first, Walter thinks it is just a strange hobby of old men. But he soon realizes the guns are used to scare away people who come by trying to sell things.
Put some of that money to work for you with the high yield only.
From that moment on, Walter begins to feel that his uncles are not ordinary men. That night, Walter is told to sleep in a room upstairs. The room is dusty and dirty, clearly unused for a long time. As he starts cleaning, he discovers a locked wooden box. At first, he thinks it might be where the money is hidden. But when he manages to open it, he finds a photograph of a beautiful woman instead. While wondering who she might be, Walter hears a sound outside. It turns out to be Uncle Hub, walking toward the lake. Curious, Walter quietly follows him, only to realize that his uncle is sleepwalking. The next day, Helen and her family come to visit Uncle Hub and Uncle Garth. She introduces herself as their niece and pretends to be kind and respectful toward them. In truth, she is only there because she hopes to inherit their fortune. When Helen sees Walter living in the house, she immediately feels threatened and wants him gone. Hearing this makes Walter feel hurt, and he decides to leave on his own. Not long after, Walter finds a public phone and calls his mother's college. Sadly, he is told that there is no student named May enrolled there. In that moment, Walter realizes that his mother has lied to him. That night, Uncle Hub and Uncle Garth go looking for Walter and find him sitting alone by the phone booth, clearly upset. At first, Uncle Garth thinks Walter wants to run away to find his mother. But Walter explains that his mother lied to him, and the truth has left him deeply disappointed. He says he wants to leave on his own because he does not want to return to an orphanage. Hearing this, Uncle Garth feels sorry for the boy and gently convinces him to come back home. He also admits that neither he nor Uncle Hub likes having Helen around. Uncle Garth then asks Walter to help make Helen and her family uncomfortable so they will leave sooner. Feeling trusted and given a purpose, Walter agrees. The plan works, and the very next day, Helen leaves after feeling unappreciated by the two uncles. That night, Walter once again sees Uncle Hub walking in his sleep. At first, he wants to wake him, but Uncle Garth quickly stops him. He explains that the last time he tried to wake Hub, during one of these episodes, his brother attacked him without realizing it. This makes Walter even more curious. He asks about the story of how Uncle Hub and Uncle Garth once disappeared 40 years ago. Seeing Walter's genuine interest, Uncle Garth finally begins to tell him about their past. Back in 1914, Uncle Hub grew tired of life in Texas and wanted to travel across Europe. He invited Garth to join him on the journey. At first, everything went smoothly. The brothers met people from many different backgrounds and enjoyed their adventure. But one day, they woke up on a ship headed to Africa. That was when they realized they had been kidnapped and forced into a brutal conflict. Uncle Hub proved to be incredibly strong. He fought off enemies and protected Garth until they finally survived the war.
We fought many battles.
After that, Garth returned home and opened a travel business. Uncle Hub, however, chose a different path. He joined the African army and dedicated himself to fighting human trafficking and freeing slaves. At that time, Uncle Hub became known as an American with the strength of 20 men. Stories of his bravery eventually reached a princess named Jasmine. Her servants spoke of a fearless American who rescued the enslaved, and through those stories, the princess became curious about him and wanted to learn more. One day, a mysterious figure begins following Uncle Hub. At first, he fights back to defend himself, but soon he realizes that the person standing before him is actually the princess. In that moment, they fall in love at first sight. Sadly, their relationship does not go smoothly. Princess Jasmine is promised to a wealthy man named Sheik. When he learns about her relationship with Uncle Hub, he becomes furious and confronts the king. But instead of giving in, Jasmine hides and threatens to do something unthinkable. To protect her, Uncle Hub fights against the royal guards to find her and eventually marries her. However, their married life does not bring peace.
Married.
Feeling humiliated, Sheik announces a reward for anyone who can capture Uncle Hub. He promises 10,000 gold coins to whoever brings him in. A few days later, someone appears with Uncle Hub in chains. True to his word, Sheik pays the reward, unaware that the man who captured him is actually Uncle Garth in disguise. This moment becomes the source of the fortune the brothers have kept hidden all these years. But the story between Uncle Hub and Sheik does not end there. Uncle Hub still carries resentment toward him, and eventually confronts him again. They clash in a fierce fight, and Sheik is nearly defeated. In that moment, he begs for mercy. Moved by compassion, Uncle Hub spares his life. From that day on, Sheik respects him deeply and promises never to interfere with his life again. That is where Uncle Garth stops his story. He tells Walter that if he wants to know what happens next, he must hear it directly from Uncle Hub himself. Since Walter arrived at the house, both uncles have started treating traveling salesmen more kindly. One morning, they even buy seeds to start a small farm. They plant them together, using the work to pass the time. Weeks later, the seeds finally begin to grow. But it turns out they were tricked. The salesman claimed the seeds were for different kinds of vegetables, but they all turn out to be corn. Uncle Hub nearly loses his temper until another delivery arrives at the house. This time, Uncle Hub has bought a lion. He claims it is for his hobby of hunting. But when the cage is opened, the lion turns out to be an old and injured female, slow and weak. Disappointed, Uncle Hub loses interest. Walter then asks if he can take care of the lion himself. He promises to look after her, and Uncle Hub agrees. Walter treats the lion with kindness and care. He even gives her a name, Jasmine. Hearing that name again stirs something deep inside Uncle Hub, leaving him quietly shaken. That afternoon, Walter and his two uncles head to the market to buy food for the lion. They load heavy sacks onto the back of their truck. But just as they are about to leave, Uncle Hub suddenly collapses. He is rushed to the hospital, but as soon as he wakes up, he becomes angry and insists on going home. With no other choice, Walter and Uncle Garth agree to take him back. Before returning home, they stop at a fast food restaurant for lunch. While they are eating, a group of young men suddenly approaches and challenges Uncle Hub. As a former warrior, he does not back down and quickly defeats them all on his own. Meanwhile, Helen and her family head to the hospital to visit Uncle Hub. When they arrive and learn that he is no longer there, Helen assumes he has passed away. A doctor then explains that he has actually regained consciousness and chose to return home. Disappointed that her assumptions were wrong, Helen decides to go to the house to check on him herself. When she arrives, the house is empty. While she is busy searching for Uncle Hub, she does not notice her sons playing outside. The boys wander toward Jasmine's cage and begin messing with it. When the cage opens, Jasmine escapes and runs free, causing the children to scream in fear. Not long after, Walter returns home with Uncle Hub and Uncle Garth, along with a group of young men from earlier. Walter heads straight for Jasmine's cage to feed her, but he is shocked to see that she is gone. He quickly notices a hole beside the cage and realizes she has escaped. Without hesitation, Walter runs off to search for her and soon finds her running through the cornfield. Meanwhile, the people nearby panic when they see the open cage and grab their guns, preparing to shoot Jasmine out of fear. Uncle Hub and Uncle Garth grow alarmed as well, worried about Walter's safety. But when they reach the cornfield, they discover Walter and Jasmine peacefully playing together. After learning that Uncle Hub and Uncle Garth are keeping a lion, Helen and her family decide to leave for good and never return. This brings great relief and happiness to the two uncles. That night, Walter once again finds Uncle Hub walking near the lake while sleepwalking. He gently brings a blanket for him, but this time it wakes Uncle Hub, leaving him startled. Walter hesitates for a moment, then finally gathers the courage to ask about Jasmine. Hearing her name, Uncle Hub grows quiet and heavy with emotion. He then reveals that Jasmine is no longer alive. After her passing, Uncle Hub returned to serve as a soldier once again. But as he grew older, he eventually came back and chose to live in this quiet home. Hearing this story, Walter feels a deep sadness. He tells Uncle Hub that he does not want to lose him and asks him to stay by his side. He admits how much he needs him. Touched by these words, Uncle Hub feels deeply moved, realizing how much Walter truly cares for him. After that, they spend their days doing many enjoyable things together. Then one night, Walter hears a noise outside the house. At first, he thinks it is Uncle Hub, heading toward the lake again. But soon he realizes it is Uncle Garth walking toward the storage shed. Curious, Walter quietly follows him, and is shocked to discover that Uncle Garth is heading to the hidden place where the money has been kept all this time. The next day, May arrives to pick up Walter. This time, she is accompanied by a man named Stan, who claims to be a detective. Together, they begin asking about the hidden money belonging to Uncle Hub and Uncle Garth. Stan explains that the two brothers were once bank robbers who hid their fortune to erase their criminal past. Walter refuses to believe this. Instead, he accuses Stan of being the real villain who only wants to steal his uncle's money. This angers Stan, and he drags Walter toward the shed, demanding the truth. Walter manages to break free and runs toward the cornfield. Unfortunately, he is caught again. Once more, Stan pressures him to reveal the location of the money. At that moment, Jasmine rushes in and attacks Stan to protect Walter. Sadly, she is fatally injured during the struggle. That morning, she is laid to rest in the cornfield beside Uncle Hub and Uncle Garth's home. She dies with honor, protecting the one she cared for. After the burial, Walter is picked up by his mother. With a heavy heart, he says goodbye to Uncle Hub and Uncle Garth. The experience has changed him deeply, and he promises that one day he will return to see them again. During the drive, May explains that she plans to marry Stan and move to Las Vegas. Hearing this, Walter immediately wants to return to Uncle Hub and Uncle Garth's house. In a moment of panic and emotion, he even jumps out of the car, leaving his mother shocked. Walter explains that he does not like the detective and tries to make his mother realize that her relationships have never truly worked out. Even so, Walter chooses to accept her decision as long as she is happy. But for now, all he wants is to return to his uncle's home. He asks his mother to let him stay with them, and seeing how determined he is, May finally agrees. Walter returns to Uncle Hub and Uncle Garth, who welcome him with open arms. He asks if he can stay with them until he finishes high school, and he also asks them to become his legal guardians. Without hesitation, both uncles agree as they care deeply for him and already see him as family. Years later, Walter has grown up and become a comic book artist. One afternoon, he receives a call from the police informing him that Uncle Hub and Uncle Garth have passed away. They ask him to come immediately. When Walter arrives, the officer explains that the two brothers died after flying a plane and crashing it into their own barn. He also mentions that neither of them had a pilot's license. The officer then hands Walter a letter written by his uncles. In it, they ask to be buried beside Jasmine in the cornfield and leave all of their belongings to him. The message fills Walter with both sadness and gratitude at the same time. Not long after, a helicopter lands in front of the house. The man who steps out asks about Uncle Hub and Uncle Garth. He explains that his grandfather used to tell incredible stories about his younger days with the two brothers. For a long time, he believed those stories were nothing more than imagination. The man then introduces himself as the grandson of Sheik, the old enemy of Uncle Hub. At that moment, Walter finally feels at peace. He realizes that the stories he grew up hearing were true after all. Knowing this, he feels grateful to have been raised by Uncle Hub and Uncle Garth, and proud of the life they gave him. So the moral of the story is, sometimes your real family is the one that raises you with chaos, love, and a lion, not the one chasing money or excuses.